Once upon a time, there was a rabbit named Chester who had an unusual craving for cheese. Of course, rabbits typically live in forests and fields, places utterly devoid of cheese. So every day, this determined rabbit would sneak into nearby homes to pilfer their cheesy treasures. One morning, a little girl named Lily discovered Chester nibbling on her breakfast. She was overjoyed. "Mom, Dad," she exclaimed, "a little rabbit came into our house. Can we please keep him as a pet?" And so the windows were shut, and Chester's life in the wild came to an end. He couldn't return to the forest. Every day, the family showered him with all kinds of cheese, and he was blissfully happy. But his happiness was short-lived. One day, a window was left ajar, and a snake slithered through it. The snake, whose name was Silas, saw the plump little rabbit and thought he looked like a delicious meal. Chester tried to escape, but he was too slow. The endless supply of cheese had made him fat and lethargic. Effortlessly, Silas devoured him. 5 days ago, I found myself at the post office, a place I despise, to mail a package. I'm 20 years old. People my age don't send letters and parcels. We use emails and instant messages. I was standing in a long line, waiting impatiently. Most of the patrons were elderly, and the queue crawled along at a snail's pace. An old woman turned to me. "You're a young lady, aren't you?" she began. "Are you sending that package to your boyfriend? Or perhaps it's a gift for your family?" Not exactly," I mumbled. "Oh," she pressed on, "who is it for?" This was the other reason I hated the post office. Why were older people so nosy? "It's really none of—" Before I could finish, a man rushed into the building, bumping into me and causing me to drop my parcel. Crash! My carefully packed present had shattered. I had used so much bubble wrap, but it wasn't enough. "Oh no!" cried the old woman. "Let me help you." "No, really, it's fine," I insisted, but it was too late. She picked up the box and sniffed it. Now that the glass jar inside was broken, the smell was incredibly strong. "Is that stinky spread in there?" Everyone in the post office turned to stare at me. "Why, yes," I admitted, my face turning red. I should have never come. What was I thinking? A murmur went through the crowd. "Stinky spread? That's dreadful. And from such a young girl, too." I started to cry. "I'm sorry," I sobbed, grabbing my ruined package and running home. Back in my apartment, I opened the box and cried as I licked the pungent spread off the broken glass. Why couldn't anyone understand? I loved stinky spread, and so did my pet snake, Silas. Well, he wasn't exactly my pet. He belonged to my ex-boyfriend, Mark, but I loved that snake more than I ever loved him. And Silas loved me, too. The moment a certain letter had arrived, I knew the truth. I was his real owner, not Mark. "Silas, I'm so sorry," I said later, getting the spread on my shirt as I spoke to him through the glass of his enclosure. "Next time, I'll use more bubble wrap." "Why do you always do this?" I looked at Silas, who was now behind the bars of an animal control cage. My snake was a magnet for trouble, and this wasn't his first time being locked up. "You're a snake, but that doesn't mean you can just sneak into anyone's house and eat their pets." Silas didn't look at me, but I knew he understood. We had to leave New York because of him. He loved eating pets so much that the city police had put a bounty on his head. If someone found him and turned him in, they would get $10,000. It was a huge amount of money, money I desperately needed, but I loved Silas too much. So we fled to Mexico. I knew my girlfriend at the time wouldn't understand. She thought Silas was perfect, completely unaware that he was secretly feasting on the neighborhood's rabbits. One time, he even ate a cat. I had tried to change his ways. I sealed all the doors and windows and offered him mice to eat, but he refused them. He only craved people's beloved pets. I tried buying unwanted pet mice from the store, but it was too expensive. I even considered breeding mice to create a sustainable food source for him, but I just didn't have the time. It's a good thing I like the beach, I sighed. I couldn't believe I had moved to Mexico just for my snake. Of course, there was another reason, my ex-boyfriend Mark. She was eccentric. One day, she became convinced that Silas loved stinky spread. Every day she would try to feed it to him, but he was a snake. Snakes can't eat cheese spread. I once woke up to find Silas and Brenda in the kitchen. She had covered the entire snake in the smelly paste, making him look like a stinky spread snake. I was horrified. Then she started licking it all off him. I almost called the police, but I couldn't risk it because of the bounty on Silas's head. But it's okay, I told myself. Brenda is still in the United States. She doesn't know where we are. We are safe. We would be safe, that is, if Silas would just stop eating people's pets. He said nothing. The local police eventually released him, and I took him home after paying a hefty fine. But when we got back to our apartment, a package was waiting for us. I picked it up and saw the return address. It was from the United States. I dropped it. Crash. I knew what was inside. I knew it. And then the unmistakable smell filled the air. She knows where we are, my mind raced. My ex knew our location, but that didn't necessarily mean she would come here, right? Then I remembered that horrific morning with Brenda licking the spread off Silas's body. I immediately packed my suitcase, grabbed Silas, and ran into the street. I hailed a taxi and told the driver to take us to the airport. I was not going through this again. Silas the snake was finally home. Florida. He had been taken from his native Everglades at a young age and forced to live in that dreadful cold city of New York. So he had done everything in his power to get back. He knew that people in the city cherished their pets, so he ate them. The bounty was a perfect part of his plan. He just had to make his owner take him to Florida. He waited for the newspaper every day, snatching it in his mouth and flipping it open to the travel section. He would find pictures of Florida and articles about its wildlife, leaving them strategically on the kitchen table. He used his tongue to change the television channel, searching for nature documentaries about the Everglades. He even stole Brenda's stinky spread, it was awful, and used it to write Florida on the floor. But his owner had taken him to Mexico instead. The man never read the newspaper or watched TV. He didn't even look at the floor. He only stared at his phone and had always dreamed of going to Mexico. So, in Mexico, Silas tried again. He watched his owner and learned how to unlock his phone. One day, while the man was in the shower, Silas slithered over, opened the phone with his tongue, and pulled up dozens of websites about Florida. He did this every day. Sometimes his owner would say, "That's strange, I don't remember opening that website." But he never suspected his pet snake. He didn't think snakes were capable of such things. Finally, Silas knew he had to give his owner a powerful reason to leave, and Brenda was the perfect catalyst. Yes, it had been difficult to send a letter as a snake. Licking the envelope was easy, but writing with a snake's tongue was incredibly hard. But he had managed it. He sent a letter to Brenda asking for her help. And Brenda, in her strange way, sent him the stinky spread. Everything had worked perfectly, and now, finally, he was in Florida. He was home. He could eat all the animals he wanted. But right now, there was one animal he really, really wanted to eat, an animal he had wanted to eat for a very long time. Silas the snake sneaked into his owner's bedroom. The man was sleeping. Silas hoped he would wake up. It was always more fun when they woke up.